Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Diener, the Executive Director of the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative, a multi-stakeholder initiative working to advance refugee self-reliance through research, programming, and policy. Earlier this month, I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Alejandra Alcalá and Francisco Alcalá Torreslanda, a dynamic father-daughter duo and co-founders of Home Storytellers, as part of a special screening of their documentary film, The Neighborhood Storyteller, to kick off Women's History Month with our initiative's Community of Practice. The Neighborhood Storyteller documents the story of Asma, a young wife and mother who was tragically pushed out of her home country by war at the age of 16. Now at 28 years of age, Asma, despite her complex situation, is determined to raise an empowered generation of women by reading aloud to and with teenage girls to inspire and empower them to build a future of opportunity for themselves. She channeled this determination into her volunteer work with the organization We Love Reading, and later took what she learned to be able to start her own reading group with young girls living in her community. Home Storytellers, the nonprofit organization that created this powerful documentary, works to advocate for global refugee self-reliance and the empowerment of vulnerable women and girls. They produce documentary films like The Neighborhood Storyteller to tell inspiring personal stories from women across the world and highlight long-lasting solutions for refugees. Now let's dive into our conversation. I want to ask you both, what inspired you to document Asma's very powerful story?
I think that the best answer to that question is that it's the story about her. It's not a story about an organization. It's about how she, when she believed in herself and her own potential of the capacity that she knew that she had to make a change for herself and her community, she did it. Through the little small actions that she did, she continued to build her self-confidence, knowing that she could become further and further and further. We met a lot of people right before we were going to document the film, of people that have amazing stories. But I think also what captured us, the attention of Asma, was that she was now starting to develop a new project of hers, which is the project that you saw in The Neighborhood Storyteller. And it was because she had now gotten to a point where she had been putting in practice the skills that she had learned at We Love Reading. And she was reaching a point where now she was able to kind of entrepreneur her own project that was a cause close to her heart, because as she wasn't able to continue her own education. And she knew that a lot of the girls in her community were facing this situation similar to hers. As a child, she wasn't able to receive support as she lived through this. And she didn't have a person to talk to or a mentor whose example to follow. And she wanted to be this person for the girls in her community. And she did it through reading. Another very curious thing was that Asma told us, we asked her, like, so how many sessions do you think that we need to be able to document this and see an actual transformation in the girls? And Asma said, in 5 sessions, you'll see change. And we didn't believe it. We're like, how is that possible? But you have it there. The documentary shows this transformation of the girls, and like Asma's strong message of saying, I know you find yourself in this really difficult situation, but you're all owners of your life, and you have the ability to determine your own choices. And that's a powerful message that I think was able to reach the girls. And you saw at the end how they say, I'm not a wife. I'm here, not as a mother, not as a wife. I am the person that I am here. And that's worth millions,
Thank you. That's amazing. That's amazing observations. So, building on that question, can you reflect a little bit on how Asma's volunteer experience with We Love Reading really inspired this cascading work in her and the way that she was active in other ways within her community and engaging in some of these solutions to some of the challenges?
I mean, we have to give you a little bit of background, because Asma went through a very difficult time when she left Syria, and then she went to Jordan and started a very difficult journey, and finally got to Zachary. She was in love with her studies. She She had passion for reading. She had dreams about becoming a teacher. And so all these losses came about when she had to leave Syria. So she was in a very tough situation, and suddenly destiny took her to this possibility of applying for a program that was going to be happening in Zatari. So she applied for the program, and to her surprise, she was accepted. And then she took the training, and the training just made a 180-degree turn in her life, because she suddenly, with that training, and when she started actually getting the kids together to read books, she found the confidence to continue, and the losses that she had, she could deal with them in a much better situation. Ale, you want to add something?
I think one of the really interesting parts about We Love Reading and this empowerment solution is that they help boost people's self-confidence. And part of this is giving them kind of turning the project over to them. So they encourage them to start a library in their neighborhood. And in this way, people have the decisions to make. What children they want to gather in their home, when they want to do it, the types of stories they want to read to them, the issues that they want to tackle. If there are any challenges, they have to find the solutions to the challenges that they face. So I think all of these, like believing in them and giving them this responsibility, I think nurtures their capacity or their belief in themselves. And it's really small, simple actions. I mean, gathering children is a relatively small action, but it's very, it really, really does nurture them to believe in themselves. So I think little by little, these small actions that Asma was doing led her to another action that led her to another action. And it's kind of like this domino effect. She starts seeing that she's having impact. On the other side, it's healing herself. She then believes that she has the capacity to apply for a job at a school. They start asking her to write stories about children, about the children that are in her reading sessions. All these little small actions are what fuel Asma to continue doing the work that she does, and that I think take her from becoming a volunteer to an actual social entrepreneur.
What was your favorite part of the filming process?
So the filming process has a number of different stages, from identifying the story, which took some time of research, and then connecting with Dr. Rana Dayani and Asma, and so getting all their buy-in into the idea. And then there is the where you actually have to put a team together that is going to be doing the production, and behind the scenes there is the director of photography, Alex Garcia Martinez, who is an amazing person from Barcelona, and then the person that is with the sound and the microphone, and then we had the challenge of the language, because we don't speak Arabic, and they don't speak English, so it was a difficult challenge for us, because we had to really understand what was going on. So we had to hire, as part of the team, a person that was translating what was happening and sending that to us on earphones, so we could understand what Asma and the girls were, and Fadi and everybody was saying. So that was also really challenging. Then we had to get lots of permits to be able to enter Zatari, from the UNHCR, from the Jordanian government, from the Royal Film Commission in Jordan. And that was extremely challenging to do it. And even when we were already, everybody in Jordan, in Amman, ready to go to Zatari, we found out things were not as ready, so we had to wait a few days before we could enter the camp. So now we're getting to the point where we're ready for production, and that's our favorite part of this whole thing, and start having this interaction with Asma, with her family, with the girls, and so just going through the process of building that relationship, and it was our favorite part, and we have to tell you that the relationship didn't stop with the production. Ale has a deepening relationship with Asma. They are really strong friends, and I keep a WhatsApp communication with Fadi and with Asma's dad. So we keep the relationship, and we really love that part of this work.
And can I add that the relationship also started long before the filming process, because we in the work that we do, it's really important that the relationship is built before we show up at their house, because we don't want to be perceived as strangers. You can't expect someone to trust you with their story without building a relationship first. And that's something that we really, really worked on very hard, months and months prior to the filming process. And I think that also sustains what my dad was saying of being accepted and welcomed in a very familiar and loving way.
It's great to hear that you're all still in touch with Asma and with Fadi, and I'm sure we'd all love to hear what they're up to today, as well. Do you have any updates on their lives?
We learned that they were in the process to relocate to France, and about 4 months ago that happened. So Asma, Fadi, and the 3 girls and the boy are now in a small city or a small town, about 3-hour drive from Paris. So they are going through that new phase of their life of resettling in a foreign country with a different language, and but they are very resilient, and they the kids are in school, and so Fadi is looking for work, and Asma, it was like the first week that they were in France, she put together a group of kids of the local community, and she started reading books to them. So we got a photograph of her surrounded by all these kids in her new community.
Yeah, and she continues very strongly to collaborate with us in making the film's impact campaign reach the 1 million women and girls that we set out to reach through her story. And she is a very much part of this impact campaign as we are. She's organizing screenings in the schools in her community in France as well. And aside from that, we have a lot of other virtual events that she is attending to, just to continue with her work. And yeah, her responsibility, she says it's her responsibility to give this message from her community to the world.
That's amazing. That's so powerful to hear about how this initial experience has sparked such a outpouring of volunteerism and activity from her side. What's the biggest lesson that you took away from Asma and the experiences of the young women who are involved in the reading group?
For both of us, it was very shocking to see and almost difficult to understand how someone that has lived so many traumas is able to channel her hardships and her adversity into an opportunity for self-growth, and at the same time to bring a positive contribution to her community. That's something that I think drove this documentary, and and has impacted us. And I think it has given us the lesson of believing in humanity and our capacity to overcome these difficult situations, and the healing power of community, and also the courage that Asma has shown in doing new things that she didn't believe that she could do, and seeing that she can do them. I think for me, at least on a personal level, I know this project was somewhat scary for me. It was the first feature film that we had, that we were ever going to be doing. And it was really, really scary. It was very challenging in a different language. Editing so much footage was really scary. And just seeing how she was able to use or like confront her fear in something new that she was also doing gave me the courage to confront my fear in creating this film.
Building on that, I'd like to ask you, you've worked on documentary films in a number of refugee contexts, and I'm sure you've seen some common threads and themes, across those different experiences. What themes related to self-reliance have really stood out to you the most as you made both this film, but also some of the other film projects that you worked on? Anything that you want to share based on what you have observed?
What we have seen is that refugees might be in a very, very different situations, depending of where they are and their current situation. We know the situation of Asma, but we were in Malawi, where there is not even close in terms of fulfilling all these basic needs. So these refugees are in a much tougher situation. There are some basic things that are necessary for them to become self-reliant, and they don't have them. Then there is people that are taken by countries and relocating to new countries, and their challenge is completely different because they may have a number of things that are satisfied, but integrating into a new society is extremely challenging. So our focus was to show a story of an organization that was actually helping these individuals to integrate. So we cannot put refugees in the same bucket, in the same place.
I think this story in particular, as my dad was saying, because the basic needs have been covered, resilience is now something that they can work with. And I think that it should be done kind of at the same time, actually, because if you don't have, if you are in shock and impacted by trauma, it's very difficult to get on your feet in all the other aspects. Like if Asma hadn't found We Love Reading in that particular moment, maybe she would continue in a depression, and that would have become a barrier for her to continue lifting herself up and lifting others in her community up as well.
Thank you to Alejandra and Francisco for their thoughtful insights. The Neighborhood Storyteller is such a powerful documentary, and it was wonderful to have them join us to celebrate Women's History Month. I hope you all walk away from this conversation with a deeper understanding of the power of women like Asma as change makers within their communities. You can learn more about the Neighborhood Storyteller and Home Storytellers at www.homestorytellers.org. If you are interested in learning more about the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative or in joining our community of practice to be invited to live events like this, visit our website at www.refugieselfreliance.org. Please note that this conversation has been condensed for listening purposes.